Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to give you guys yet another look at the Sony HX20V because quite frankly this camera as well as the 30V in my opinion right now represent the best point and shoot cameras, especially at their respective price points on the market. So much like the HX9V, Sony kind of redefining what's capable in a pocketable camera. Now granted, this camera is slightly larger than the 9V, so if you're coming from something like a Sony T-Series model, this is going to seem big to you. However, I can assure you it can still be very pocketable. I do carry it around in this hard shell case, which is Vivitar branded, but you get the idea. Essentially, you can find a case like this pretty much anywhere for under $10 or in that range. I did used to carry my HX9V in there, and it does, of course, accommodate both the 20V as well as the 30V. Now, this camera, again, is priced at $369.99, at least through Best Buy right now. Any other retail channel, you're looking at $400. The 30V is $420. Only difference between the two cameras is that the 30V does have Wi-Fi on board, so you are able to transfer images to a computer or to a mobile handset or tablet. Not really a tablet, but I'll reserve that for the HX30V review. You've got a 20x optical zoom on here, which is phenomenal. I can't stress that enough. The fact that Sony has been able to squeeze that into this body is great, and that's why I'm talking about form factor, because if you're accustomed, as I mentioned before, to something like a very compact pocketable camera like the Sony T-Series, then this camera, as I mentioned, will seem large. However, if you're a user accustomed to the HX1000, or excuse me, 100 or 200, then it's just simply mind-blowing to be able to get a 20x lens in your pocket and not have to have a gear bag anymore, or just some kind of additional bag, in my opinion. Now granted, this is not going to fit in skinny jeans, but a regular pocket or cargo pocket, it'll be right at home. You'll have no issues. As far as something to be used as everyday, for me, this is now my everyday camera without question. My NEX7 is fantastic when I know I need great images, images that I'm going to need to be able to make large prints of, or just that are going to have far more value to me than just the regular events of a day, not to depress anyone. The fact of the matter is that's when you need something like the NEX7 or a digital SLR. But for everyday shooting, that's where cameras like this really shine and redefine, in my opinion, the role a camera can have, or at least the relationship you can have with your point-and-shoot camera, the love-hate relationship. Now, most reviews out there right now, or I should say user feedback, point to people either loving or hating the 20V, 30V image quality, and I'll explain to you why. The camera's really fast to start up, focus incredibly fast also, video quality great, and like I said, great focal range, really allows you to compose pretty much anything you want from 25 millimeters all the way out to 500 millimeters. Again, that's a 35 millimeter equivalent. This is a very small sensor, which does result in quite a bit of watercolor effect. If you don't know what I mean, essentially when you're going to zoom in on your image detail, even though this does have an 18.2 megapixel sensor, you're going to see smudging occur. Now, some people are appalled by that when they see it. Personally, I know that that's something that is an effect of Sony's in-camera processing, and it's a very small price to pay for what Sony has accomplished for in-body processing, in my opinion, because most users out there who are buying point-and-shoot cameras, I don't think lean towards too much post-processing, and Sony knows that, so they want you to get pictures out of the camera that are just ready to be shared. And especially with a camera like the 30V where you have Wi-Fi, the pictures are literally ready to share, not just figuratively ready to share. So, I mean, this is really a case of, if you're looking for image quality, like I mentioned before, someone asked a question about, they're a new father. If you're a father, you want to look, in my opinion, at something like an NEX. Now, it's to me a matter of a couple of $100 difference here. We're talking about $200 to $250 more to pick up a 5N, NEX 5N, as opposed to one of these cameras. Specifically, I'm, of course, alluding to the 30V. This camera can be had for $370 now. And, there you're just going to get better overall quality in every regard. But, as I mentioned before, this camera has already outperformed my NEX7 on many occasions, which is incredible. In terms of obviously that focal range of up to 500 millimeters, I have to carry a gear bag to accomplish that. But of course, the images and video quality I get from the NEX7 can't be matched by this, especially if you're going to want to crop. And cropping is really important because if you aren't the most qualified photographer and you don't know, even the rule of thirds or whatever you're going to apply in order to take pictures, the fact that you'll have that cropping capability is going to help you out. Whereas a camera such as this, you're going to get a great image, but nothing more. You're not going to be able to go in there and fine detail. You know, if I'm shooting shots right now of birds, let's say, and I want to get close and look at fine detail, this camera is not going to accomplish it. Will it get a stunning photo that I would never be able to accomplish out of my pocket? Absolutely. And that's where, in my mind, this is a fantastic piece of photographic equipment. And it's unmatched at its price point and feature set without question. Remember, beyond the 20x lens, you're getting geotagging capability, and this is the fastest I've seen from any camera to date. You're also getting GPS logging, which is something that was completely vacant in the past. Also, in terms of the modes, let's talk a little bit about them. Obviously, I'll show them to you guys on camera as well. You've got a host of them that are really similar to what was on the 9V, as I mentioned in my first part of reviewing this camera. But the dial is firmer, so a lot less of coming out of the case or out of your pocket, and the possibility of jumping into the wrong mode for your setting, because that is pretty annoying. It does happen, it did happen to me at least a little bit with the 9V. Pretty much a non-issue on the 20V and 30V. Want to point that out to you guys. Now, if you're wondering what is the intelligent and the auto intelligent and plus mode really all about, the intelligent mode essentially, as I mentioned in my 9V review back last year, is great because it is literally the intelligence of your camera coming to life here, because it's able to determine which mode you should be in, which setting, at least preset that the camera already has available to it, without you having to jump into that mode. So I'll show you some of the presets, but again, the idea here is to take you into presets just based on what the camera detects in the scene. And then of course the plus mode takes it to another level by taking into account exposures as well, which of course are still more just presets built into the camera, and they really could combine that all into one. The reason they don't is because when you start dealing with exposures, the camera starts taking multiple images in order to get those various exposures, for things like HDR, and when you're dealing with things like that, it's going to take up more battery life and also delay the actual shot-to-shot action. So they did need to make it two different modes. All the other modes here are fairly standard, from panorama to your priorities. So I'm going to show you guys in a moment. And of course, the video mode. And I've got to stress again, like I did in part one, video mode now is far improved in terms of lag time. And that to me was the most critical thing, because you're not missing moments. I mentioned this in part one. I'm reiterating it here in part two. So let me go ahead and power up the camera and just take you guys. And you'll see how quick that startup time is, very fast. And you can even see how close the focus is here. I'm literally, I would say, give you guys an estimate of about an inch away from the Alpha logo, and focus is tack sharp. So pretty impressive for macro right there. There's our result. If I go ahead and take you guys through the different modes, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to zoom into the actual screen here so you guys are able to see, and take you guys through what's available. So Auto Intelligent Plus, as I mentioned before, and their marketing is simple there, as you just saw. Program Auto for auto exposure with adjustable settings. By the way, I do recommend this setting. It's the best one to go with. You will get your best images in that mode, especially if you have some working knowledge of cameras. If you don't, obviously stick with the Auto Intelligent or Auto Intelligent Plus. The last mode, really, again, though, you're going to get your best photos in Program Auto mode, without having to do much, I will say that. Manual exposure, of course, memory recall mode, as well as the, of course, iSweep Panorama Sony feature, which is great for creating, very high quality panorama shots. Not going to do that right now. Your AVC HD mode, of course, your, video mode. Some of the best video in business, 1080p, 60 frames progressive, as well as 2460i as well. Of course, also in MPEG-4, you're able to shoot some nice video as well, but that's really for sharing on the internet, not for home quality, home theater or highest quality available. What else do we have? 3D shooting. This was available, of course, with the HX9V. I'm not a big user of the 3D mode, but for those of you out there, everything I've seen so far looks good. As far as scene selection, now this is where I was mentioning the different scenes that the intelligent and auto intelligent try to employ. So really, your basic scene selections are going to be where the intelligent will usually be able to figure out what to do without your help. The auto intelligent plus, that's where it's going to start, as I mentioned before, taking multiple images to give you different exposures to yield the best result. But there are all your different scene selections. Pretty much everything that was there with the HX9V, all impressive, good stuff, and they all work as advertised so far. Low light, the camera does about as best as you're going to do in this class of point and shoot, especially with a 20x focal range, which I cannot stress beyond the autofocus speed. Also, it is sharp at, all the way through the entire range, which is not something I could say about even the previous model, the HX9V, which was a superb camera. As far as the menu, let's go ahead and jump in there. So in terms of stills right now, wait, let me make sure which mode we're in. Let's go back to, I didn't even finish with the background defocus. I left that out. Of course, that's there, much like it was on the HX9V, essentially just to mimic, the blurred background that most digital SLRs and compact interchangeable lens systems will be able to yield, something a lot of point and shoots simply can't achieve. And of course, that's been a trend over the last year for all point and shoot cameras. Now, back to what I was mentioning before, if we're in just the intelligent or auto intelligent, if we go into menu, you can see we've got our different still image dual record size, and within video you can see you've got a full range. Top is PS, and that is of course AVC HD 28 megabits per second. That's what I always recommend shooting in, because of course you can always down convert video later. Always best to have it in the highest quality, in my opinion, as long as you've got the room in the SD card. So you're going to want either a 32 or 64 gig card for this camera, no question about it, especially if you plan on shooting video. You're also going to want to carry, obviously, a couple of spare batteries without question, because battery life, you're looking at around 300 stills, I would say, and as far as video, 30 to 40 minutes is where things are going to top out. Keep in mind, clips are limited to 29 minutes. That is a law. Otherwise, Sony would have to dub this a camcorder and pay higher import taxes, essentially. I believe that's what that's all based around. But there are your different video modes. In terms of face detection, it is able to detect up to 8 faces, or excuse me, for smile detection. So this way, hopefully, when you're taking that family portrait, you get everybody smiling instead of just 3 or 4. But you can see a couple different modes there. There's your smile detection sensitivity, as well as just the smile shutter feature being on or off. Scene recognition, as I was discussing with you guys before. Now, continuous shooting, one of the great features on this camera. You're looking at, the ability to take 10 frames per second. So for sports photography, definitely a good thing. As you can see, they're giving you 2 different modes, though, high and low there. Basically fairly simple. I won't pass over the imaging here, the sizes, but these are your qualities. And, do keep in mind that even when you shoot at 18 megapixels, it sounds like you're getting a tremendous amount of image detail. But as I mentioned, you will have a watercolor effect when you do try to crop an image like that. If you're looking to do cropping, again, please go with a higher end camera, move away from point and shoot. Then again, you may be very happy with a camera like this as long as your prints are never going to get larger than, I would say, 8 by 10. That's the reality of this camera. And then of course there's an easy mode, but I really don't recommend anyone using that unless they have no working knowledge of cameras at all. So that's pretty much everything that's offered in the basic menu there. Of course, also your image stabilization, pretty important. You've got movie steady shot as well as standard. I would always go with active. You saw I already had that on. The GPS positioning, you can turn that on or off, of course, as well as the GPS log. And of course, there's also an in-camera guide. Let's jump into the actual settings. As you can see, movie format, you can clearly switch in and out of either AVC HD or MPEG-4. As you can see, only 30p available in the MPEG-4 format. if we go ahead and jump back, really just want to take you guys through the menu so you see what's available. I do recommend turning the digital zoom off. The clear image zoom I've left on because I've just been playing with it, frankly, and I want to see what results are. But for most of you out there, I do recommend you keep that off because it will degrade image quality, even though it is not a traditional, just simple magnification process of your image. But it really does provide a lot of options for a point and shoot. In fact, the most I've ever seen. The only thing missing really is RAW capability, but then again, that would lead to Sony cannibalizing its own high-end market, which is pretty much the reason I think we don't see it here. Also, I don't feel that image sensors that are this small really are capable of RAW quality results in terms of image detail. So that is something you have to keep in mind, obviously, when you compare it to even the NEX5N, which has, a 16 megapixel sensor, lower rated than this 18.2. You have to remember that is a much larger sensor, as a result, a lot more detail in the image. But that pretty much gives you guys an idea of everything, you'll be finding in the menu. As far as ergonomics of this camera and build quality, as I mentioned before, made in Japan, quite nice, really like it. Only gripe is that the battery door is, has a little bit of play. You can hear it right there. I mentioned it, in the 30V Part 1 review as well. This play really shouldn't be there, but otherwise, very solid camera, well made. The still quality is great. Video quality is also fantastic. If you enjoyed what your HX9V was able to do, I think you'll be only further impressed by this camera. A lot of people out there have been, appalled by that image quality, saying, wow, I zoom in and I see, just smudges everywhere. If you go back and look at the HX9V, it exhibits the same issue. So I'm not sure if people just aren't putting things into context or not and looking at the competition out there. There's no question with a Canon, you might get less of that watercolor effect since it is a signature of Sony's in-camera processing, as I mentioned before. But Canon simply isn't going to give you as robust a feature set as this camera, nor will it give you that video quality, in my opinion. And you've got to remember, you've got that continuous autofocus across the entire 20x lens, which is unmatched by any compact ultra zoom on the market. So really like this camera. I think it's a great value at its price point, and really just think it comes down to whether or not you want to have the Wi-Fi enabled 30V. And I of course will be giving you guys an update on that camera as well. One last thing, audio quality is again really superb, outside of the fact that it does record the lens motor, which is just avoidable on any kind of compact like this. But ergonomics, everything is great, folks. I think you will be hard-pressed to find a better camera out there right now, as long as you understand the limitations of the point-and-shoot segment. Do not expect digital SLR results or NEX-like results from this camera, at least in terms of image detail. Otherwise, a great performer at a great price. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.